Okay.
Hi, good morning. I am Kathryn Watson with Educational Nurse, and we are here with the Scrubs and Stethoscopes, the Nurse Handbook, and my coworker partner here, Ashley Robbins. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so this week we're going to be talking about careers and different developments, and we're going to kind of first start going over where we started and then our dreams and where we are today. So you want to start with, like, when did you consider changing your mind in your nursing career, and how did you identify that it was the right path for you?
So I had been back and forth between, I was working both at the hospital and outpatient. Had briefly left the hospital for a bit, but did go back because I missed it. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, there's things I love about the hospital, and then there's things I don't. And then there's things I love about outpatient, and then there's things I don't. And I felt like I couldn't find my niche. Like, where do I fit in anymore? I used to be so passionate about bedside nursing, and I still loved it, but I didn't feel that same drive for it anymore. So I actually decided to go back to school to become an NP, and it did take a little push. But then when I started sharing that with my coworkers, especially in my outpatient job, I started talking to the cardiologists I work with, the NPs I work with, and they're like, absolutely, this is amazing. You should do it. And I applied, I got in, and I've just been loving it, learning more, and I'm really excited to make that next step when I finally graduate, because I feel like that's my niche. I can work in the outpatient setting, but be more hands-on and meeting with my patients versus, unfortunately, a lot of times in the outpatient setting, it is phone triage. And I do get a fair amount of hands-on in cardiology versus like somewhere like primary care, but it's not enough for me. So I think this is going to be the perfect spot for me when I'm ready.
When you're ready. Yeah, I was talking. So we're looking into how we got where we are. And I first started, as with Ashley, at the bedside. I worked the nights. We all feel like we all did our divisions of the positions, the 3 to 11s, the 11s to 7s, whatever position it is, that we sit there after a while and decide to say, is this what I'm going to be doing forever? And then part of my journey is that I was working as a nurse for at least 2 years, and I was working nights, and I was at a beach, and I heard this god-awful scream because I was going to be working that night, and I look up and I see this mother trying to pull her child out of the water. And Nurse Me jumped right up and I said, call 911. We tried to help this young child, and then sadly, he died 5 days later from aspiration pneumonia. I went about my day, or job, I should say, and then I get the letter in the mail saying I'm being subpoenaed for a deposition for my actions involved in this. Got so scared and saying, oh my God, I'm a new nurse. I thought I did everything that I was supposed to do. It turned out to be okay because, yes, I just spoke the truth and said everything that I needed to say, but it drove me and pushed me into another total career in nursing that I didn't even know that existed.
Exactly.
Legal nursing has not been around long. It started in the 1980s because doctors were actually working with lawyers. But then we sat there and fought with the standard of care to say that they can't speak on what we do, where we can't speak on what they do.
Exactly.
So that is why and how I got into legal nursing. And then as I was doing that and reading different charts, I would just start to see certain patterns. And like you, after a certain time, I was like, I don't know what I want to do when I get older. We sit there to say we're nurses, but what are we doing? Because the world out there is so big and there's so many different opportunities. And I decided to go back to school. So I'm like, I'm going to do it for a 5 to 10 year plan that if I ever want to go for a job, no one can tell me no, because they push us so hard to get your bachelor's. You need your bachelor's. You're not going to get hired in a hospital unless you have your bachelor's. I said, how are we going to change and be different? So I went to Framingham State and I got my master's, and I focused in nursing leadership, but my projects were on patient safety and nursing quality. I found that where I was doing legal nursing, that is kind of the part I felt that kind of fell for nurses is that they don't understand the whole process. We're so used to doing a job and just doing what we need to do and not thinking about the bigger picture. And that's why I'm trying to come in, and where we're creating this educationalnurse.com is to teach other nurses. One, when you first start as a nurse, the first few months, you're so scared.
Yes.
I always tell all the nurses that you need to be patient with yourself. Like when I'm teaching at the bedside. So I've been teaching for the last 7 years. And like I said, patterns to say that it's okay to be scared. School teaches you how to take a test. They don't teach you how to be the nurse at the bedside. So I would say be patient. You're not going to feel confident in yourself fully for at least 2 years. Because I say the first years, you taking a little piece from all the nurses that you're with and ask the questions. Like we said last week, we said you had to ask the questions. Don't be afraid of a stupid question. And that's what we do in our private community, to say, make it a safe place for you to come and ask your questions. So, and then the other thing is that we talk about money. Like a lot of nurses or things going around in social media, I hear a lot is they're not making a lot of money, travel nursing. And I know that in the news it's talking about capping travel nursing pay, which I think is ridiculous. But that's a whole different subject.
Yeah.
I always look at new nurses to say that this is probably the most money you ever made. The standard out there, I don't even know anymore what the base pay, the national average, like $15, I think now. I don't even know. Either way, becoming in a nurse, you're going to make at least $20 to $30. And you have to start somewhere. You know, but I would say try to make the most money you can, is that work at your job and then get a per diem job somewhere else, because you don't want to overwork yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I found that I would sit there and be like, they want you to work, they want you to work, they want you to work. And you feel obligated to do that.
Yeah.
And I always say, don't feel obligated. I don't know if you would say that to new nurses.
Definitely that push to, oh, your coworkers are short-staffed, and can you do a double? Can you pick up this extra shift? And before you know it, you have no days off and you're burnt out. So, I think it's important not to always feel obligated. It's one thing to want to support your coworkers and to be a good coworker, but you can't pour from an empty cup. So,
right. I definitely agree. Take a little sip of water. A lot of talking here this morning. So if we're going to advance our careers in nursing, looking to like up their skills or retain a specialty, what would you recommend them doing?
I think we were in a great position at Milford Hospital where we had a solid education department. And I feel like just by going to work, we learned so much. We had educators on the floor. We had classes all the time. But there's also classes beyond where you work. There's research that you can look into. So if there's something you're passionate about or you want to learn more about, explore that. It doesn't have to be at work. I remember when I was a new nurse, I asked so many questions about EKGs. And it was actually before I got to the hospital. I graduated in 2012, and I feel like every hospital around that summer went on a hiring freeze. And so it was really frustrating. I had precepted all that time at Milford Hospital, thought I was definitely going to get a job there, and then Milford went on a hiring freeze. So for my first year of nursing, I actually worked in outpatient primary care. I didn't love it, but I took what I could get from it, and I learned so much about certain things. Like I had a lot more to learn once I got to the hospital for sure, but I remember there was one physician there that I used to nag him all the time, like, teach me whatever you know about EKGs. I want to learn more. Like I'm craving more. And so he actually gave me that book. I think it's by Dr. Brown, maybe, the EKG book, the orange one.
Yes.
And
I was told that that's been around forever. I
Yeah.
graduated and got my license in 2008, and I remember that.
Yeah.
But I actually took that book and I made a method called the 2-1-4 method.
Mhm.
And it just helps break it down easier and stuff like that to understand it, because there was just so much in that book. I was a
So
little overwhelmed with it in the
yeah,
beginning.
I know as a new nurse, I was definitely overwhelmed, but with his help, I learned a lot. And I think just looking for any opportunities like that where it could be a formal training or it could be informal like that, and it really will impact your career and your knowledge. And then that provider also thought more of me because I wanted to learn and I went to him, and so we developed a very good relationship because of that. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So networking and mentorships,
Mhm.
I always try to tell everybody, like, first you have to figure out what you want to do.
Mhm.
Then you have to work on getting your resume and a cover letter together. So we do help with that. So if anybody out there is looking for help with a resume builder or a cover letter, we're here to help. So
Yeah.
you can send us emails about that. I'm at Kathryn at educationalnurse.com, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you guys have, and we'll kind of go from there. But we do have national stuff that you kind of have to get into if there's certain positions that you're looking into. So the
Mhm.
CCRN, that
Mhm.
is for critical care nursing. Then you have stuff for women's health or whatever that you decide to do, because
Yeah.
OB and the operating room. Each of those places that you go to or you apply, see what programs they have. Because where
Mhm.
we are, there's a pre-op program that's about a year long that you do before you're actually on your own. And same thing with the mother health. They have a year-long paternal help, because when people have babies, things can go very wrong very, very quickly. And they sit there and they do protocols. We always hear hemorrhagic, protocol, and
Yeah.
they have things in place to make sure that the mother and the baby are safe.
Yeah.
There is a new thing on social media that's kind of going back and forth. I don't know if you heard about it, that this patient actually punched a nurse in the face while she was laboring. That's a whole different avenue of like which side you can see.
Mhm.
I can see both sides. I can see the nurse wanting to do her job, but then I can also see the mother who wanted her birth plan and didn't want to be touched, because sadly she did lose a baby at that same hospital. So
Mhm.
it's such a touchy subject, but going back to say that whatever position or career choice you choose, you want to sit there and set up your networking and your mentorships so you know that you're moving in the right direction.
Mhm. Yeah,
I always
definitely.
say to get the 5-year itch. I don't know if you're the same, where all of a sudden you've been doing
Yeah.
something for a while and you're like, what else is there out there? Because
Yeah.
the same thing, we build resilience to the stress, but we don't build the resilience to what we take home with us and what we stick
Exactly.
with.
Yeah. And I think if you lose passion in something, it's a lot harder to deal with the stress that comes along with it. Like if you love something and it's stressful, you can cope with that a lot better. But once that passion starts to dissipate, you're like, wait, this is actually awful. Why am I putting up with this? Um,
Right.
and you might have that desire to move on.
Yeah, and the good thing about nursing is that we have so many different options,
Yeah.
even beyond the bedside at a hospital. A lot of things are going digital, like us
Mhm.
giving this podcast that we're doing and everything we're creating online to give resources out there. Um, we are nurse coaches, so it's like whatever you have an issue with, that we just want to say that we're here to listen and to support you in whatever you decide.
Yeah.
This month is Women's Awareness Month, and Ashley's going to go into more details about it, because I'm so excited about what we're bringing
Yes.
next week for you. So, do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as I've said, I've worked mainly in acute care and cardiology, and I've loved it. And I still do love cardiology. I feel like it's what I know the most about, so it's kind of hard not to be passionate and love it. But I had something new that I'm very passionate about, um, and that's endometriosis and just women's health in general. And so, in my time as a nurse practitioner, I've always planned to go back and work in cardiology, or at least work towards that. And now I'm thinking maybe that isn't where I fit in. Um, because I got diagnosed with endometriosis after 24 years of symptoms, after being told flat out, no, you definitely don't have it, only to find out not only do I have it, but it's stage 4. And it probably didn't need to get to stage 4 if it had been treated appropriately 16 years ago. So that is really taking over what I'm feeling passionate about these days. And I want to make things better for young women that are suffering and help them. So that's kind of where my career is headed at this point.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. I could raise my hand and say, me too, with the endometriosis and having no idea. Years worth of suffering, pain. I went to my GYN and I said, this is what's happening on ultrasound. They're like, oh, you have a cyst and all this discomfort I have. I go into surgery. And then when I wake up from it, they're like, we got the issue. And you're like, what? And they're like, you had endometriosis. We cauterized everything. Okay, fine. And now here I am a year later, sitting in the same boat. Like, I feel lost. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And that's why my nursing career at this point too is going more towards holistic stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what else modalities are out there that we can help each other? Because as we spoke about last week is the work-life balance. It's not more of the balance of the job itself, because I feel like we hear this work-life balance, work-life balance. People, I feel like, misconstrue like those words, because it's not all about what we do as nurses at the bedside. Because I'm sorry, administration, if you died tomorrow, your job would keep going. Everything would keep going. And when we talk about this, it's more of like what you need to do as a person for yourself. And that's the drive we kind of want to send home to everybody, is that it's taking care of yourself. And us as women, we are lacking in that, because let's say it's a man's world out there. They drive a lot of stuff that happens. And this is the issue, is because they don't know what us women go through every single month.
Yeah.
And we're like, I have a headache today. I have this today. I have that today. And when you try to explain it to someone, no one else gets it unless you're experiencing it too in some way.
And when things like endometriosis get bad enough, it's not even just a problem once a month, it's a problem every single day. I mean, I was having pain in my rib cage, like shooting up my rib cage. I never in a million years thought that was endometriosis. I thought, like, this is some weird muscle spasm. I don't know. No, there was a lesion pressing on a nerve that was causing pain up my diaphragm and into my rib cage.
Yeah, you never know. I always like bend over and I'm like, oh, I feel like my rib, like a muscle just rolled down. And I'm like, ah. Yeah. And then after you're like, oh, it's nothing. You just need to drink more water. You're dehydrated.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Wait, I drink a lot of water.
Right?
I'm telling you that I'm dehydrated.
Yeah.
And I started doing all these different modalities of Celtic salt. I actually do a pinch of Celtic salt in my water. So I drink 2 of the big water bottles, and I make sure I drink at least 1 of those a day to help bring my salt levels up, I guess, or not to feel dehydrated and get a headache and the muscle spasms. But then I'm learning a lot too about the different vitamins that we have in our body and that we need. I know that like a lot of people probably go to like CVS, Walgreens, whatever of the convenience stores you go to get your vitamins. And all those stuff that they make, it's not actually good for you because there's a lot of fillers in it.
There is. You have to buy the quality stuff if you're going to go that route.
If you are going to go that route, that is true. But then someone might say, hey, I can't afford that. So then we got to turn around and say, well, there's different things that you can do and different diets, because a lot of things that we go through are all from our gut. Our gut is such a big, big thing. And with holistic health, that's kind of where we start with, because what you put in your body is how it's going to be affected. And as nurses, we always say, like, what's the biggest organ in your body? And everybody always tries to think of different things, and everybody always misses. It's your skin. All that lotion that you put on yourself, your body's absorbing it, especially deodorant. putting underneath your arms. Like I have deodorant now that it's not, has no aluminum in it or anything. Yes, you may have to put on a little bit more. Yes, when you are transitioned to it, your body's going to sweat a little bit more. So you got to get used to some of those changes that you make. But in the end, you are going to start to feel a lot better.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, so making changes in your career can be both exciting and challenging. So, like, what are some of the challenges should nurses expect when they're transitioning? Like, do you have any strategies for them to find effective in overcoming some hurdles they may be feeling?
I think the first one is to just accept that it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be scared, to leave what you know for something new. I actually had this before I became a nurse because I was set on doing political science and going to law school and all this stuff. And at the age of, I think, 19 or 20, I had already done several internships. I interned with Senator Kennedy. Like, I was doing awesome to fulfill that dream. And I decided I wanted to be a nurse. And I went to my professor, who was my poli-sci teacher at the time. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be a nurse. And he actually got really angry at me. And I was like, whoa, okay. Like, he was like, well, I don't understand. And I realized, like, it doesn't matter if he doesn't understand. It's not for him to understand. And now that I'm thinking I want to take a step back from cardiology and do something else, I'm having some of those same fears. Like, all these people have mentored me for the last 4 years and they're so excited for me to do this. Are they going to be disappointed in me? And the truth is, I don't know. I think deep down, I don't think so. I think they're going to be supportive of me, but it is scary. And I think that's okay. So, once you accept that fear and you realize that's okay, that's acceptable, just doing whatever it's going to take to get to where you need to be is the best way to do it.
I'd say that is true. I always say have a positive attitude in whatever you are going to be going for, and prepare yourself for the questions of the interviews that may come up. Know a little bit more of, like, the job that you're going for. So this is where we talk about networking and finding out there that there's different positions out there for you. Like, I want you to research some of the potential specialties or settings, because it's okay to be scared. And it's okay if they say no, like you didn't get the job. I applied to so many jobs and we found a better candidate. Or we noticed that they had this certificate and you don't. And at first I was so upset with myself. Like, what? Wait, our resumes, everything's the same, but this one certificate makes a difference. And that's something you may hear. Yes, if a job that you're going for requires certain certificates, go on the internet. The internet is so big, and start researching what is it going to take, because there's so many wonderful websites out there to help you prepare for whatever test you're going to take. And yes, you're going to be looked at a little bit up compared to another candidate if you have certain certificates behind you.
Absolutely. Like, to go back to the resumes, it's really hard, especially as a new nurse, to prove yourself on a piece of paper. And I think that is a big challenge. And I've been there too, where I've applied for a job and didn't get it. And I'm like, but why? But they don't know you as a person. So they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting that piece of paper, or they're saying this other piece of paper was better. It's not possible to completely look at each human being in that situation. So I've learned not to take it so personal.
But it's amazing. It's so hard not to. Because I'm trying. So I was teaching a class the other day, and a lot of people are like, I take things so personal. And I said, it's true, because we're supposed to be. I would say you're supposed to be selfish because we have to protect ourselves. And that's okay. But then you have to see things from perspective of it. And I always say, step out of the box and look at it from a different point of view. I was teaching some of my students the other day with patients. Like, patients get so upset about stuff. And that's us as nurses need to realize that you're doing your job, but this is the person who's sitting in a bed who's scared.
Yeah.
and doesn't know anything else. And we always say we take things out on the person who's closest to us. And
Mm-hmm.
sadly, sometimes that is us as nurses or medical field or a
Yeah.
person in general. Like my best friend and I were having conversations going back and forth, and she was upset about something her family member did. And I said, and they're holding on to the past, let's just say. Like the past, the past, the past. People don't realize it's none of their business of what you're doing and growing with inside you, but
Yeah.
it is your business to let them know that you're setting certain boundaries. And
Yeah.
it's okay to say no. It's okay to speak up. And it's okay to say, I need to do something different for myself because this situation is not working for me anymore. Where we
Yeah.
go back to that work-life balance. It's not about the work, the job, because you can't get past that because you're not the boss.
Yeah.
You know, you're that worker, but you can do something different within your life and going back to self because
Yeah.
it's self-care, the
Yeah.
resilience that we have within us, because we all have been growing up in different scenarios. And in
Mhm.
the other class that we have is the nurse harmony. I talk about peace and balance within your life because it's not all about the job. And
No.
everybody thinks that's my identity. Like I always go back, like, who are you? And you're like, I'm a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not your identity. No, that's your career. That's not
Yeah.
you. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have that misconception when they turn around and say, I'm a nurse, I'm this, I'm that, I'm whatever. And I was like, that's true, but who are you as the person?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
I think
know?
I don't know if other professions feel this way, but I think with nursing, it's very easy for that to consume you because people look at nursing as like we're heroes or whatever. Some people look at it negatively too, but I think when someone asks like what do you do and you're like I'm a nurse, they start to look at you a little different. So then you're like, oh yeah, I'm a nurse, and that just becomes that identity and you keep saying it, I'm a nurse, I'm a nurse. And it does make you stop and think, but wait, who am I? What else am I? Because I'm only a nurse when I'm at work. Like, yeah, you're a nurse all the time. And they say once you're a nurse, you're always a nurse. But when I'm at home and I'm with my family or my friends, like, who am I as a person?
Yes, big time, big time. And
Mhm.
that's where I always try to say to find that fine line of separating everything and
Mhm.
then just working on yourself because I've been having a lot of anxiety around deciding what I want to do and where I want to go. So I have started doing the mindfulness and meditation that I teach to say that I to ground yourself. I sit there and pretend like everybody holds things in their belly. We always have that intuition that we kind of
Yeah.
build on. And I do talk
Yeah.
about we build the nursing intuition because you walk around in somewhere and you're like, something's not right here. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, someone's calling a code and we all run off. So you build that nursing intuition. But as a general population, it's not the same, but it's always the solar plex. It's in my belly. My belly hurts. My
Yeah.
belly hurts. So that's where I would say that's where we got to hone in on our strength of who we are. So mindfulness and meditation in the moment of grounding yourself to the earth, they say. So
Yeah.
I always picture like I have a box and like my door opens and I have an anchor that I send out and I keep feeding it into the earth. And then when I was like pulling up on it, the boat, and you've got to wait until it like latches on. And that's why I tell people to ground of like keep feeding it down there until you feel solid. Or
Yeah.
a tree. They always say a tree with the roots growing into the
Yeah.
ground. And you can close your eyes. And this is what I tell everybody to kind of practice of taking those deep breaths.
Yeah.
Your parasympathetic nervous system, because my newest thing with everything that I'm going through, I was like, my mind's okay, but my body's freaking out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why. And that's your parasympathetic nervous system
Yeah.
just taking over because we're living in fight or flight. And that's a high level of cortisol that is in our body. But
Mhm.
it's funny how it's because vitamin D is low.
Yep.
So going out into the sun. So taking those moments of wherever you can be in the sun. And there's no timeline on this. Everybody feels like I'm doing this and it needs to be fixed right now. It's
Yeah.
not, because other things are going to be triggered in that moment, kind
Mhm.
of thing. So when people are considering like transitioning different programs, some hospitals or healthcare institutes like to have like programs for nurses that you can look into that can move you into new specialties. So these like classrooms are always like in-person learning, clinical experiences, providing structure and a new path to gain the necessary skills and knowledge, like your knowledge that you need. So going back to saying yes, I would say you're going to Google and say, what else is there? What you have passion for? What are
Mhm.
your interests? Assess like your goals. Where do you want to
Yeah.
be? I would say, don't think small, think big, because the world is your oyster, they say, and the
Mhm.
nursing and the opportunities in the medical field are just so big. So first start with like, what is my passion? It's amazing that me and you started off as cardiac nurses at the bedside, and now we're transitioning into this new big thing for us of the future.
Yeah.
And I'm just so excited to see where all this kind of goes. It's
Yeah.
like the baby steps, but it's just like when we start looking at it. So I'm excited about next week's topic when we start talking about, because the end
Yeah.
of the month, we're going to start going over what this month is, and endometriosis month is March. So we're going to talk about that next month. You'll have to stay tuned and find out what we're going to talk about that next month, because each month is going to be different because you have so many different things out there. So stay tuned for that. Ashley's going to talk all about that next week. So we have everything set up for you and we're very excited. And then the networking. Like networking, there's so many things on social media and different networkings that you can get into. So my biggest recommendation, I would say to start, is LinkedIn.
Yes.
LinkedIn is a career professional place. You can go on to Facebook, you can go on to TikTok, you can go on to all the other ones. But if we're talking about professions, LinkedIn is a good place to start. And they have different groups that you can kind of get into and just start watching the feeds and seeing what other nurses who've been a nurse for a while and what they're saying, because you'll learn so much. That's kind of how I started to grow my legal nurse consulting, because
Mhm.
I started looking into it, and I actually took a course called RN Stats out of Tampa, Florida. And back then, there was only a few places that you could go to advance your career in that.
Mhm.
Now they're all over the place. And now I'm amazed that even colleges, a community college, is
Yeah.
teaching you to be a legal nurse consultant. So I can tell and talk more of that. So if you are interested, yes, like I said, reach out and we'll be happy to talk about whatever career path that you decide. We'll help you build your resume, your cover letter, because my letter, like my resume is different, because in the legal world, it's called a CV.
Mhm.
And people are like, what's the difference and all that? So we can go into that. So if you want to learn more, just reach out to us, leave your messages in the comments here, and we'll have different topics that we want to talk about, and just stay flexible. Is there anything else you wanted to say or add and talk to anybody, or give them a little, what are we going to talk about next week?
So just touching on the resumes real quick, I think it is super important to have someone else look at it, whether that's us or someone. Always have someone proofread that resume before you send it out, because you know what you're trying to write there. You're probably going to make a mistake. So I always have someone look at it, and I love looking at resumes. I don't know, my eyes just are drawn to those mistakes. I can find them and I can fix them. And as far as next week goes, I plan to jump in more to endometriosis, share a little bit more about how I finally got diagnosed and what I want to do to help other women. So I look forward to
Yeah.
doing that.
Well, it was so happy and great to talk to you this
Me
week. I'm looking
too.
so forward to next week when we talk about it. I want to say thank you for everybody who joined us and listened today, and stay tuned for next week. All right. Bye, Ashley.
Bye.